Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest, a podcast dedicated to creativity. My name is Scoob Decker, and I am an artist and your host. PMI is an exploration in meeting some incredible artists, learning about their craft, and exploring what makes them create. Everyone is familiar with Kermit the Frog, Elmo, Big Bird, Alf, and others. These characters are fabric, empty cavities, probably starting out as socks that soon would captivate the world. But how? Without the brilliant minds like Jim Henson and Richard Hunt who created and voiced these puppets, we would not fall in love with these relatable and heartwarming characters. I was able to snag one of the craft's youngest and well-established members, Landon Harvey. He started puppeteering at 6, building his own puppets by 16, and has launched himself towards paving a way with ventriloquism and comedy. In this episode, Landon dives into the skills of creating voices, learning how to talk with a closed mouth, and the hard work needed behind the scenes in preparing and building his craft. He believes comedy is a mirror to society, and he is trying to find ways to let ventriloquism, which is a vessel of comedy, be the same. His goal is to make you laugh, and he is funny no matter what voice he's using. This episode was recorded on May 23rd in Las Vegas, Nevada. I hope you look up their work and your interest is piqued. I hope you're having a grand day, and please enjoy this week's episode I've titled Edgy and Goofy.
Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest. I am currently in Las Vegas, Nevada, sitting with a unique artist. Please introduce yourselves. Who are you and what do you do?
Hi, my name is Landon Harvey. I am a comedian, ventriloquist, and puppet builder.
And where are you from?
I am from Plano, Texas.
Fantastic. What is your specialty within your craft?
Within ventriloquism, I think what sets me apart is that I'm young. I've been doing this since I was 6 years old, and I'll be 24 come November. So it's been a passion of mine. I started the art when I was young. I started building puppets when I was 16, and I've just kind of really just dove into everything that the art had to offer, and I'm continuously learning and growing and trying to inspire along my own journey.
Now you say you started around 6 and started building around 16. Did you have any background in schooling with ventriloquism or comedy?
My background was mainly just YouTube University. I watched every possible ventriloquist I could. Of course, Jeff Dunham and Terry Fader, and there was a ventriloquist named Dennis Lee that was the first ventriloquist I had seen live. When I was 6 years old, he performed for Red Ribbon Week at my school, and I remember the magic of seeing that performance. And there was just the set design and the message and the humor, but also the realism and the believability of the characters, which is something that I so desired to emulate. And I think I've been chasing that desire ever since.
So you've had some role models in your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I would consider yourself pretty successful. Do you consider yourself successful within ventriloquism? And what got you succeeding in your craft?
That's a tricky question, success. Because I think from the outside, it does seem that I've amassed a lot of followers, and I've got some viral videos out there, and people quoting my puppets and sharing the videos, which I'm very grateful for, and it means the world. And to some degree, it's hard to believe still. And there's a lot that I haven't done yet that I think I chalk up to inexperience and my own insecurities. So to a degree, I do feel like a success, maybe online, but sometimes I wonder if I meet that in person.
Well, you have shows that you do, right? Do you have a tour that you do?
Yes, I'm working on it. I've been building it for the past year, and that's been its own trial and error situation.
So is it just going out there and doing it gives you that satisfaction that you're an artist?
Yeah, I think for the past couple of years since COVID struck, it's messed with all of us, but I think for me it pushed me to do more online stuff, and now I'm getting back out there in front of live audiences and trying to figure out what I've been doing online resonates with live crowds, and kind of reworking that so that it caters to the live audience. And that's been a journey in itself and a self-exploration, so to speak.
Wonderful. Can you start to dive into your creation process a little bit? I know from my perspective, ventriloquism is a combination of two things. You have a physical puppet or a marionette, as well as a voice. Let's start with the voices. How do you create voices and for our entertainment? Can you tell us about the difficulties of talking with your mouth closed?
Yes. So typically when you learn ventriloquism, you learn the art of it, the talking without moving your lips part first, and then later on you realize, okay, the puppet has to sound different than I do, and all of that. And that's how I learned. I learned the art at 6, and I've been practicing it since, is what I like to say. In terms of the characters, the creation of each puppet kind of varies. Sometimes it'll start with a voice, and then I'll create a puppet idea, and then build the puppet, and then gel it out that way. Sometimes it will start with the look of the puppet, and then I'll work backwards with the voice and the backstory and everything else. I think ultimately it comes down to, can I write for it? And if I can write for it, then it will most likely work, and I will continue its process from that point. The biggest thing I think people don't realize is, just like with a comedian, you can have writers, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to improvise and talk for another character, if not multiple characters. And so you have to really know who they are and be able to identify through them. And I think that I'm able to say that I can do that with all of my characters and through all of my work.
Yeah, as a performer being on stage, you have to be able to be on your toes at any moment. Anything can happen. But when you're on stage, you might have yourself, another character, maybe even multiple characters,
Yes.
and you've got to be working on your toes. That is very impressive. Now let's talk about the physical look of each character. How do you come up with these ideas? I mean, we're sitting in your condo right now where we have Jackie the jackalope, a redneck, and a marionette. How do you come up with these ideas?
Again, they're kind of all over the place. Jackie was, there's this guy online that had this kind of Midwestern, kind of bizarre voice, and he would kind of space out every once in a while, and it was very like a character off the regular show or some like animated type thing, and I thought it was so funny, and I would watch this guy with a friend of mine, Bob Rumba, who was also a seasoned ventriloquist and club comedian back in his day, was brought up with the likes of Emo Phillips and Judy Tenuta, and we would laugh because we would call each other for on these 4-hour calls, once a week or whatever. And I said, this is such a funny voice. I've got to find a puppet for this. And we went back and forth, and we got, everyone's got a rabbit. Jack Williams, ventriloquist off AGT, has a rabbit. Before him, Darcy Lynn has a rabbit. What can we do that's different? And he's like, well, I've never seen a jackalope. And I go, what is a jackalope? He's like, it's a mythical creature, and it's kind of bizarre. And from that point, I thought, that's great. I'll do what Jay Johnson does, where he introduces the character and explains kind of the nature of the character, and then we can get into Jackie and what he is. So I built the jackalope. When you build a soft puppet, like a Muppet style puppet, you can save the patterns for it. And basically what that means is when you make patterns, you're taking a 2-dimensional design and darting it so that you can glue it so that it becomes a 3-dimensional design. And I didn't really save the patterns for him because I figured this will be a one-off character, and if it works, great. If not, I'll just sell it to someone, because I've been selling my puppets for the past couple of years. Well, little did I know Jackie would become my most popular character, someone that I can improvise more with than any of my other characters. And through performing with him on TikTok, and the shortness a video had to be, the kind of voice that would start talking like this became a little quicker, and then he became more ADHD and more like my little cousins who were 8 and 11 at the time, where he's playing Fortnite and he's asking if I have games on my phone, and he's constantly bothering me, but I also love him, and it's this kind of love-hate relationship. And so there's a lot of making sure that even though Jackie is a mythical creature and that would not exist by any means in our real world, finding anchors for him to where people can relate to him outside of him being a jackalope. So him being ADHD, him bothering me on a constant basis, the relationship I have with him that the audience is able to pick up on, those are all important aspects to me for characterization and puppet performance.
And again, going back to the physicality, I see a lot of hair, a lot of felt, a lot of plastic. How do you build a character?
Typically out of foam, but it's a lot of gluing and stitching and patterning and hiding of seams and trial and error. Testing it in its beginning stages. I've got video of me trying out my Bunky character when he was just in foam and making sure he moves right. And then once you cover him in fleece and you stitch him up. The harder puppets, the marionettes, are sculpted and then cast in urethane. And then you pull that out of the mold. You make a mold of it, you pull that out of the mold, and you animate the mouth, and you paint it, and you put it on strings, or you give it a head stick like the typical ventriloquist figure has. So there's a lot of different methods to building a puppet, and it kind of comes down to what is the end goal for when you pull out the puppet and you introduce it? What do you want it to do? Most of my puppets are soft puppets because I can build them bigger. I can animate them more with my hand. I can get more physical movement with them that way than kind of a sterile hard figure that kind of just moves left and right and has kind of a box that they can perform within.
And how often do these characters change while you're making them, whether that be physically or with their voices?
I think I've gotten better about them not changing.
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, they've kind of morphed. My oldest character that I still use, his name is Mervyn. He is a ladies' man, kind of geriatric, old folks' home dweller. And that puppet has gone through probably 5 versions. And if there's footage of me online performing it when I was like 17, and his voice, both of our voices are cracking because I'm, beginning to go through physical changes and all of that. And it's very humorous. But now that I've got my voices under control, I think, starting with the initial concept rendering and subscribing a voice to it, I'm able to kind of stay consistent on that front.
Mm-hmm. And what gets your creative juices flowing? What inspires you? Obviously, you like to look at other ventriloquists and watch their work. Yes.
It's hard to come up with an answer that's not basically saying that what I do is derivative of everything else, but it kind of is. In here, you can see in the condo, I have a lot of photos of Edgar Bergen, who was a famous vaudeville ventriloquist. And a lot of what he did is emulated today by Jeff Dunham and many other ventriloquists that are working, because there was a charm and lovable nature to his characters and his delivery style and everything. And so I think what I try to do is I try to study everything, and then just like, learning a character in a scene, you study all the lines, you see if other people have played it, and then you kind of divorce yourself from that and just kind of figure out what your style is and what you can bring to what you're doing. And that's kind of what I've done. I think I try to be edgy in my nature and goofy and
I think
out of hand.
You can find that edginess and goofiness if you watch any of Landon's videos with his characters. He's hilarious and very talented. Now, when you're trying to find your style, I assume you probably run into a few brick walls. How do you overcome a creative block in your craft?
Creative block is an interesting thing. I don't think I've had a serious... I think I got burnt out from ventriloquism when I was junior in high school because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so there was probably half a year that I didn't really touch the puppets or perform or anything because I was just kind of frustrated and I was in a bit of a stagnation. Running into a brick wall is a funny thing. I think at times I am best if I put the puppets away. It sounds like the weirdest thing, but sometimes it's like seeing your best friend too often. And so I find that, okay, I have to put them in a closet and go get some fresh air or go to the gym or interest myself in a new hobby that is aside from my work. Because ventriloquism started as a hobby that then turned into my life. And so it's hard for me to divorce the two at times because I'm constantly writing jokes or thinking from the perspective of 5 different people and identifying through those characters and perspectives. So I think if I have a block, it's maybe when I'm writing new material for them, and sometimes versus staying right on track, I kind of veer because they are all over the place and I just try to get as much as I can onto the paper. But I've been lucky to work with writers and people that have helped me and guided me to stay on structure.
So when you put your characters away, I'm sorry, I'm just noticing your redneck's armpit hair. When you're putting your characters away, do you have any hobbies that you have? Do they get your mind off the craft, or do they complement your craft?
I love art in all forms. I love painting. I love sculpture. I also love films. I try to find things that will complement my craft or that can get me thinking a different way than I already am. So I watch a lot of films, a lot of movies. I love people watching. I think just studying people is so interesting for people that are working as actors, which is what you are as a ventriloquist. Acting is a big and crucial component. But I also love nature. I love getting away from it all. I love the idea that I could do a show for tons of people and then I can go on a nature walk and just be alone and connect with Mother Nature is just very important to me. So there's that element as well.
Going a little further, would you recommend going to school or taking classes to build on ventriloquism for somebody who's trying to get started?
Absolutely, and this has been a big thing I've been building over the past year because I have people messaging me and reaching out going, where can I learn ventriloquism? And you can learn it on YouTube or there are books on it, but I have put together something I call Ventriloquist University, and it is a online university where you can learn everything from the beginning to the end of ventriloquism, and it's constantly going to be built on and improved, but the goal is to teach you the basics and beyond. And that's what I've done. I've brought the people that have inspired me in this art. We've done interviews, we've done classes and how-tos, and we are building the community through Ventriloquist University, and that's really the best resource and the most affordable one is what my goal was, because as a kid my parents were very supportive, but my father always said, if you want to do this, we have to see you're interested in it, and you have to make the money to buy the puppet, or you have to go do the show, or you have to prove that this is what you want, and you have to prove it to yourself. And so that's what I've done with VU and making it accessible to everyone.
That's fantastic. I might have to take a few classes.
Absolutely.
And do you have any advice for any newcomers to get started? Besides taking your classes.
Yeah. Sign up today. I would say to any of the newcomers, make sure this is something you really want to do. I think when you see it online or when you see it on these talent shows like America's Got Talent, it looks very fun and exciting and, I'm going to pick up a puppet and be that tomorrow. And that's really not the truth of it. Darcy is very talented. Jack Williams is very talented. Jeff Dunham is very, very talented, but it is a grind. I've been performing in front of my mirror for years, and then I got the courage to perform in front of a different mirror, which was a live audience. And from there, I've grown, and it's really, you really have to put in the work behind the scenes. And I didn't realize that going forward. And if I had a dime for every hour I put in behind the scenes, people wouldn't believe it. But you really kind of become, especially nowadays with all the content and everything, you kind of become your own producer. And so ventriloquism is about 10% of what I do, performing it, and then the rest is behind the scenes work and brand building and figuring out who I am and what I have to offer that's different, that hasn't been offered in ventriloquism before. Because if I don't have anything different, then what's the point? So that sounds like daunting, but pick up a sock and look in your mirror and go from there.
Speaking of, are there any misconceptions about your craft?
I think typically misconceptions, there's a weird stigma with ventriloquism, and it's kind of dwindled over the years depending on who you ask. But when people think ventriloquist, they think of the creepy dummy, and they think of the guy in his mid-50s performing for a kid's birthday party. And there is a lot of that. And we have a ventriloquist convention in Kentucky every year, and you will see a lot of that there. There's a lot of bad ventriloquism. There's also a lot of good ventriloquism. And you just gotta know where to look and see enough of it. I think the biggest thing is, to those learning ventriloquism out there, a lot of people think puppets are creepy, and I think it all comes down to the look of the puppet, but also how it's performed. If something is performed like it's a doll, it's going to be creepy. If something's performed like it's a living creation, it can be poetic, it can be humorous, it can be relatable, it can be conflictive, combative. It can be a lot of things that evoke other emotions than just fear. And if something is meant to be bizarre or scary. Like I've got this puppet on this couch here that's kind of creepy, kind of Chucky-ish, very slappy from Goosebumps. It's creepy, but it also can have other layers to it. When you meet someone, you might think, okay, they're this way, and then you might learn, okay, they're this way, but they're also this, and they're also this. We all have layers to our personalities and our character, and that's what your work should have. Your puppets should have layers. I think that's what makes a good ventriloquist, and that's what keeps away from the stigma of bad ventriloquism.
And how do you handle criticism?
How do I handle criticism? Block and delete. No, I take it all at the same time. To me, criticism and positive feedback are kind of on the same spectrum because it kind of depends. Like, some of my videos, you see my lips move, and sometimes it's just me getting the video out and getting it out there, and sometimes it's people not liking the character. It could be a number of things. Sometimes it's a joke that I try out, and people think, oh, you can't say that. So criticism is relative because I would say at my level, I've been doing ventriloquism so long that my technique is pretty solid. And now it's more like if I get criticism, it's criticism on the joke that I'm telling through the puppet, or the puppet's telling, or that I'm telling, or I'm participating in. And so it's just making sure that if it's out there, that it's justified and that it's conveyed as comedy. Because my goal is to make people laugh, not divide anyone or make them feel little.
Don't make anybody feel little with your little characters.
Exactly.
Little characters, big personalities. Are there any funny or interesting stories that are just off the top of your head with your craft?
I have an artist friend, and she is in her mid-70s, wonderful artist. I work with her often for social media, and we do a lot of collaboration together. And every once in a while, when maybe things get too chummy, I will throw my voice for my own humor and pretend like someone's knocking on the door or whatever. And I do that also in elevators sometimes, or to mess with people. So I think that's pretty fun. That's a fun thing that you can do as a ventriloquist when you get good. Funny stories. Back in Texas, I would do a lot of miscellaneous shows. I would do children's parties, I did corporate events, and I did a lot of Cub Scout shows. And these were known as blue and gold events. Cub Scouts would host this big party, and they would do their end of the year celebration. They'd give out awards, they'd have entertainment beforehand, and I did my one-man variety show, which at the time was my half-hour ventriloquism show. And at the very end, I would bring up one of the dads that volunteered for the Boy Scouts, for their troop. I would bring him up, put the puppet mask on him, have him do a couple jokes, sing a song, and while he was singing the song, he called up his entire Cub Scout group, and they formed in the action of him singing and being a ham, performed this chorus kick line that was hilarious, and I just went along with it. And it was probably one of my funniest memories, and the audience just loved it because they knew everyone that was now on stage, and that's what you have to do. You have to go with the flow, and in an improvisation like that, it's exciting and very fun.
Wonderful. And then I have a question. How do you travel your puppets between shows?
The traveling of puppets is difficult because they are big. Right now, we're flying, and so I'm able to fit most of them into, I think it's 2 checked bags. And so they curl into each other, and it looks like a puppet jigsaw puzzle, fitting within TSA regulation.
You ever get some weird looks at TSA?
I've brought puppets through TSA, and they've stopped me for it, and they've pulled out the puppet, and they kind of just look at me funny. And listen, I'd show you who I am, but it would be take longer. But yeah, this is what I do, and this is my craft. And I had a guy once pull out. I have a little dog puppet that has a self-made beanbag inside of his body to weigh him down. Biscuit, my little dog puppet, and I didn't think that a mass of plastic beans would throw off their security, but lo and behold, ding, 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 and they pull me to the side, and this big African American guy is looking at me, and I'm wearing my crazy shades, and I'm in red pants, and I've got my funky hair, and he's like, why are you setting off our system? And I go, oh, well, I've got a puppet in there. So he pulls out this little dog, and he holds it up like it's a real dog that he's just caught. And he's just kind of looking at it, and everyone in the TSA line's like looking at me strangely. And I have to explain, yes, I'm a ventriloquist. And he doesn't hand me the puppet to prove it. He puts the puppet on and starts doing like a bit. I swear, it was the funniest thing. I mean, he and I could not have been physically more opposite, which is what adds to comedy. And then, of course, him performing the puppet. I wish I had a photo of it, because it was wonderful. It made my day. But he performed the puppet and then just handed it back to me. Like, okay, if it performs as a puppet, then you check out, which was very funny to me. And then I went on my day and realized that the beanbag had to be pulled out of the puppet and packed separately.
Yeah, you learn somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And my next question, you say there's a difference between a puppet and a ventriloquist doll.
Yes. Yeah, typically, I mean, a puppet can be a ventriloquist doll. I think when people think of a ventriloquist, they think of like a puppet like Slappy, where it's got like a head stick, which is like a rod underneath the head, and it's got little levers, and the eyes move side to side, and it kind of looks like it's porcelain or wooden. And so that's what I think of when I think of like a classical ventriloquist.
Like a marionette.
Well, a marionette is similar, but a marionette is on visible strings. A ventriloquist dummy has the strings hidden, and they're connected to a lever, a dowel that has levers on it that's hidden inside a body cavity, and that's where your hand goes. So there's and marionettes usually don't mingle with ventriloquism, but I'm finding a way to merge the two actually. But yeah, those are the different kind of forms.
How many strings are on a?
Oh, a marionette has a variety of strings depending on what it does. Typically, it's got a couple back strings to anchor it, legs, 2 to 4 leg strings depending on how much movement. It really comes down to movement. Like on a ventriloquist dummy, you really only need a moving mouth, but if you want to add to it, you can have moving eyes, moving, all these sort of animations, and it's fun, but you really don't need it. At the end of the day, Sherry Lewis made a career with Lamb Chop, and Lamb Chop is a sock. So it comes down to the ability of the performer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let me ask you about your writing. Where do you come up with your material? And do you have any background in comedy writing?
I used to write material with my dad when I was younger because I needed an older perspective. And then as I've grown, I've gotten better at writing. I watch a lot of cartoons and sitcoms, and that's broadened my horizons to the different way people live. And I think understanding that one person's lifestyle and truths are very different from another person's, and that's okay, and that's normal, and that's life. So I think writing to that stuff can be funny because it's character driven without it being like you're looking or writing where the audience is assumed to look down on the character. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And lately, it's a lot of me going back to the live streams or looking in the mirror and just messing around with the puppet. Because sometimes you come up with goofy stuff when I'm tired or when it's late at night, and that's usually when I come up with my best jokes, or I'll write them down. Or sometimes I'll see things in the news that make for great headlines, and I'll find a way to spin it, and I'll go, that's a great joke. Well, this joke works for that character. And the nice thing about being a ventriloquist is different from a typical stand-up, is a stand-up has one very specific voice. If you think of Gabriel Iglesias, he would not do the same type of joke that Tony Hinchcliffe would do, or that Jim Gaffigan would do. They're all very different styles of stand-up comedy. And so, just like with a ventriloquist, the nice thing is that all of my characters, I've tried to have them have different cadence, a different delivery, and different subject matter to talk on.
Would you consider your work family-friendly, a little vulgar, a little...
I'd consider my work innuendo and not family-friendly, but I think that most of my stuff you could get away with showing it to kids and they wouldn't understand it. And that's why I try to aim for innuendo. Yeah.
And what's next for the world of ventriloquism and marionettes and puppetry?
The world of marionettes and puppetry is alive and well. It's kind of like turning over a rock and then seeing all the bugs underneath and going, oh, there's a lot more bugs than I thought there were. Same thing with puppeteers and ventriloquists. We have a ventriloquist convention every year in Kentucky, and there's about 700 of us from all over the world that gather around to share and talk shop and perform our art. So I think it's evolving. You know, we see it on TV a lot, see it on social media a lot. There's a lot of different ventriloquists for different audiences, and I think just keeping it relevant. Comedy is a mirror to society, and I'm just trying to find ways to have ventriloquism, which is a vessel for comedy, be the same.
Yeah, I come from the performance art world, and I've seen puppetry in many shows. I just saw a show the other day that had a puppet in it. And even though it wasn't talking, it was able to give a whole story.
Absolutely.
And evoke feelings and all that stuff. And you see that from live theater to anything from Asian celebrations to all sorts of birthday parties. I think it's such a unique craft that you see it all over the place. And it's really interesting to see somebody incorporate comedy into it.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a magic in puppetry, and whenever I pull out a puppet, even without talking with it, I've learned this in my marionette work. Just pulling out a puppet, you see people light up, and it's truly something different. They become kids again.
And what's next for you personally? Do we have any new puppets coming? Do we have any new shows coming?
I'm in the I kind of call it the training montage of the movie of my life. I've been working on my show, and I'm going to start touring, probably colleges, with my damaged goods show. And my show has been a reflection of me and my life and my living with this illness of ventriloquism, and talking about am I damaged goods and what does that mean in terms of my life and my dating and my existence, and how do the puppets relate to all of it. And that's what I've been doing is writing my damaged goods show and taking the characters that really work on social media and finding a way to introduce them on stage to people for the first time.
And where can we see your work or work like it?
You can find me online. I'm everywhere on social media at Landon Venting. That's LandonVenting. And you can look me up, LandonHarvey.com.
Yes, your website is very informative, and it gets to show all your different puppets and all sorts of videos and watching your work. And just for our entertainment, would you mind doing a conversation between a few of your characters promoting you and your ventriloquism?
Okay, let me see.
Put me on the spot.
Between a couple of my characters? Alright, let's see. What you don't see right now is the awkward process of me fitting a puppet back on my arm. Okay, this is Jackie the Jackalope. Yes, and we're here for the podcast that Scoob is doing. This is great, very exciting. Yes, and we are. I already forgot Landon here. Landon here. What are we doing? I kind of spaced out.
Let's promote Landon Harvey.
Oh, right. Like he doesn't do it enough. All right. Well, where can people find us? Everywhere online. Landon Venting. We do a lot of online videos and social media. Let's see what else. We're gonna be touring soon, right? So all the tour dates and stuff will be on LandonHarvey.com. Right. That's LANDON. Yep. HARVEY. What? VEY. Yes. LandonHarvey.com.
And Jackie, what's it like working with Landon?
Legally, I can't share that. It's fine. You enjoy working with me. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I have a lot of competition. He keeps adding puppets. Right. Yeah. But I try to find other ways to resonate with other people than just a jackalope. Yeah, that somehow stings. Well, that's okay. We make it work. Yeah, we have fun. Yeah. And I would say that Jackie is my main alter ego. Right, but he's got others. Right. I hate that freaking AC. The joys of living in a condo.
And I like to finish with one last question, Landon.
Okay.
If you could excel in any other craft other than your own, what would it be?
If I could excel in any other craft other than my own, identifying my craft as ventriloquism and comedy and writing comedy and putting all that to the side, probably either painting or songwriting. I really love lyrics. I've always loved writing in all of its forms, so probably one of those.
Do you think you'll ever incorporate music into your acts?
Oh. I incorporate music currently, comedically, but nothing that I've written myself, mostly just parodies.
Do you think you can sing some ventriloquism?
Not now. Does he look like Darcy Lynn? He's not Terry Fader. No, he's different, right? Talentless. No, I do comedy more. So do they, but they also sing. Well, I build my puppets. Touche, right.
And I can't thank you enough, Landon and Jackie.
Thank you.
For
Happy to be
joining
here.
me and piquing my interest. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, when's lunch? Okay, really, Jackie? Well, I'm hungry. That's peckish. I have to sit there on that couch for like an hour and listen to you babble on about yourself. No, well, it's also about you. Whatever. No. You know how hot it is layering fur 24/7? All right. Yeah, that's it basically. Thank you for having us. You know, this is always fun. I love sharing my art, and inviting people into the community of ventriloquism is exciting, and it's a great community. So if you're interested, Ventriloquist University, we've also got a ventriloquist convention, vhconvention.com. Check it out. I'm there every year, along with many other notables and our art.
Wonderful. And thank you to all my peekers out there. Please let me know if you know of any special or unique artists or art forms you think I should explore. I am currently in Las Vegas, Nevada, and can't wait to see where Pique My Interest takes me next. Remember, creativity comes from the heart. Push yourself. Be kind to each other. I'm Scoob Decker, and thank you for helping me pique my interest.